We lived next door to each other as kids.
And now, same city.
We were never that close during any of it, but we knew each other.
I'd seen him here and there.
We were aware of one another.
We kept our space, not consciously, we just ran in different spaces.
But we were always aware. Social war.
Another body, another name, another image has circulated. The latest body name, the newest image to haunt.
It's shameful.
I posted. This is no time for apathy.
I liked it.
Fight for equality continues.
Liked it.
And then I typed a hashtag. 3 words I thought that anybody could get behind.
I didn't quite like that. So I responded with a hashtag and 3 words. Nothing offensive. Words I thought anyone could get behind.
I didn't quite like that. So I deleted it.
She deleted my response. Totally hypocritical.
My wall, my space. And yet I edit it. It's the only space where I can build the world I'd like to inhabit.
I respond to her posts a lot, right? We share the same algorithm politically.
My response was to remove it.
Erasure is never okay, so I responded, this is not a race issue. Not really. This is about abuse of power.
I responded, are you crazy?
I responded, we're talking about equality. The human experience. No time for stark divisions along racial lines. This is a time for us to recognize our shared humanity.
I deleted it.
So I messaged her.
He messaged me.
We haven't seen each other in a while or spoken. The last time was at a concert. She was a little mad at me because the MC performed a song with the N-word in the chorus and she saw me sing along. And she never said anything, but after the show, she was cold to me.
He messaged me.
Hey.
I know it's been a while. He felt like we needed to talk. Needed to clear the air.
Can we sit down for coffee sometime? Sitting down.
I want to ask you what you meant, but I'm finding it hard to ask you. What I'd rather do is just tell you what I think about what I thought you meant.
Well, I can explain what I meant.
I'm sure you can. But can you explain what I read and what I took it to mean?
Well, I just meant that we're all comprised of matter, right? Matter being that essential molecular element of which we're all built. Ordinary matter like trees and water, solids and liquids.
But sounds, the voice, for example, was not always considered matter. Matter used to only encompass a select set of solid objects.
Yeah, but all along it was all matter.
What happens to matter split? Does it explode and decimate millions of bodies of colour? And whose hands split that matter? What we are talking about are black lives split, shaken until they become bombs.
Yeah, their lives, those lives, it's all ridiculous. We're here and we can decide the way this is going to go. You know, this doesn't have to, it shouldn't be, you know, and we, us, we don't have to ascribe an aside. There was that summer after senior year of high school. We were both short on credits. All our friends took off. We had to stick around. We both ended up working at the library to make some extra cash. You know, we got kind of close that summer. We talked about books, smoked joints on lunch break. That was the summer I got into R&B and I turned her onto some indie rock. And I thought, man, what a cool chick. And there was that one night after our shift, we got these tall cans and decided to break into the school. We heard someone, so we ducked into the only open room we could find, the chemistry room. It was dark in there and we were super quiet. We drank more and started to get close. Maybe it's because things were coming to an end. Well, we got close to, but we didn't. She stopped suddenly, said she had to go home. Look, we're on the same side, Kim.
Are we?
Yes, we want the same thing.
After another man is lying dead in the street, your immediate impulse is to correct me, to talk semantics with me, to say, well, actually, Kim, I don't know what side that is. An aside. In particle physics, antimatter is material composed of antiparticles, which have the same mass as particles of ordinary matter, but have an opposite charge.
I don't think anyone is less or more or special.
When we say Black Lives Matter, do you think that's us saying we're special? Look at us, we're getting shot.
No, but it's sort of making your suffering worse than others. No, wait, that's not. No, that's not what I mean. But it's saying your suffering is. I mean, like what about Africa? You know, all the Boko Haram stuff, or women all over the world being assaulted, or
okay, but wait,
being deported, shot at border crossings, or hell, even poor white folks who live in black communities who are bullied because of the crimes of others.
Oh, cool.
I'm all for civil rights, right? But looting, property damage, and just
no,
it doesn't work. I mean, it's not strategic. All lives, Kim. That's all I'm saying. It's just let's pull that act from the context of race, right? We have to break this down to the root. Human wickedness.
And sometimes humans kill humans because of their race.
Right. How are we supposed to get anywhere when we can't even get past this?
Are you willing to decrease your mass? Because that's what it will take, some stepping aside. But you guys just don't want to cede.
You guys who?
You keep talking about equality this and equality that. But Cole, we're not equal.
Yes, we are.
Black and white, all matter, is not equal. Different mass, different volume, different uses. The water, the tree, we are not the same.
We grew up the same way.
But the way we were perceived was different.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean those perceptions are true.
Why can't you just say it? Black lives matter.
Like, do white lives not matter?
Nobody is saying what doesn't matter.
But it's exclusionary.
It's contextual. In this climate, it relates to the splitting of black atoms.
I can say it.
But not without an addendum.
Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be great if I just wish we could move on. Just, be ourselves, be individuals, our own perfect stars,
What?
just be our own perfect stars.
What are you talking about?
Like when we were kids, right? When we'd have a block party, all the kids would be out, getting our faces painted like Spider-Man or bike races. We were just kids in the neighborhood, right? When did we start becoming?
I was the only black kid at the block party.
No, we were all just kids. Just kids.
No, we weren't all just kids. I was the only black kid.
All right, well, I didn't see it like that.
You didn't see I was black?
No, and I didn't treat you different. I didn't call you names. I didn't spit on you.
But not everyone was like you.
Did somebody spit on you?
You think just because you're enlightened enough to not be the racist white guy who spits on black people that everyone else is too. Everyone else must be the same.
An aside. She wasn't always like this.
An aside. I was silent. I used to be silent.
She used to be real easygoing. A cool chick.
I used to hold my breath. Breathe shallow. Up here. In my chest.
Look, you're my friend.
I'm your black friend.
Right, so does that make me your white friend?
You just get to be a perfect star.
No, look, what I am is legacy, right? Racist until proven otherwise. No matter if my family did or didn't own slaves, or did or didn't vote a certain way, it's all stamped on my matter.
Oh, boo fucking who? The white man's oppression. Nobody is locking you up in astronomical numbers, taking away your right to vote and telling you to pull yourselves up by your own bootstraps. Nobody has historically benefited from the systematic demise of you and yours. What's the white man's oppression? People's mere opinions. The black comedian's caricature. People asking him to be politically correct. People calling him out for hiring his buddies. The white man's oppression comes in the form of screaming voices under his foot.
An aside. I really want to leave. I feel sick. I want to hug Kim and tell her I'm sorry, but also, if I'm being honest, tell her to get over it. Life is hard, all right, and there's no measuring stick for suffering. She can change this just by being herself and not this angry black woman.
An aside. I really want to let Cole off the hook. Drop this whole thing and tell him it's all good. But I have swallowed myself so many times in order to make white people feel less uncomfortable.
I just want to fix it.
Cole wants to know how we fix it. Wants me to tell him, but I just woke up like this. I don't know how to dig into the hearts and rewire people's circuitry. Who does? All I'm trying to do is keep it together.
I want to tell her I'm sorry.
I don't need apologies. I just want it to stop.
I couldn't say it. Actually, hurts to say. It fills my stomach with all this history. To say it is to admit that my life, in someone's eyes, people living, people dead, has mattered more than other folks. And I don't think it does. But someone at some point has believed that. And maybe my life has been better because of that.
That night, in the chemistry room, when we got close, Cole and I all those years ago, I was into it. I liked him until he put his hands in my hair. I thought about all those kids in school always asking to touch it. Can I touch your hair? Can I touch your hair? And how they'd react when they did it. And he had his hands in my hair, and I wondered how he thought it felt. Weird, funny, good. Then I thought about if he had ever been with a black girl before, and it just all got too much. I told him I had to go home. So I did, and I left. And that was the closest we ever got.
A week or two later, I sent Kim a message. I thanked her for the conversation. I told her we should be in touch more often. That I wanted to keep talking, not just about this, about our lives in general. But then I got a message back. It was from Kim's mum. There'd been an accident, a story, the same story again. The same thing, a misunderstanding. They called it a failure to comply. She failed at being silent, and so she was made silent. You know, and I'm left wondering if it's true that life, you know, a spirit or a soul, I guess, has mass. Does the voice linger? Is it hanging there in the particles? On her wall, I wrote a hashtag and 3 words.
Birdner Bush Road, Hereford Retreat, Nut Close, Gairner Close, Sumner Road, Daniel Gardens, Canaries Close, Jarrett Street, Samuel Street, Pentridge Street, Cinnamon Close, Finch Mews, Barber Road, Moody Road, Crane Street, Diamond Street, Carisbrooke Gardens, Boathouse Walk.
Shoe Zone, Sports Direct, JD Sports, Shoe Zone, Sports Direct, JD Sports,
Didoxin, Brisborough, Don Brazil.
Angel wants the Jordan-Air retros, but I say the Converse All-Stars are more suitable for school. He won't have it. It pouts his disappointment at me. Says I want him to look like a fool. So funny. So sweet. I can't afford the Jordan Air 4s, so I buy the Converse and that's the end of it. He gives me the silent treatment all the way from Rye Lane to Hanover Park.
When I tell Lola that I'm 362 years old, she can't stop giggling. I'm with that fella on TV, that doctor whose face regenerates each decade. Abby, you're too much, she tells me. To stop, or she'll split her sides laughing.
I cross roads, gardens, closes, and squares. Scope reality in the names of the streets. Embed them in my mind. I map a walk, and then when I'm at my desk, pin it down with logograms and contour lines. I retrace my steps, embellish the maps with flourishes of my own. Carrot symbols mark the vomit on Pentridge Road. A rose marks the shrine to a hit and run on Rye Lane. My mind, oh my mind, explodes with images of green and pleasant lands. I long for open spaces. Concrete kills me. I'm made of softer climes, the blue spume of the ocean, particles of sugar and sand.
The communal lounge of Hanover Park Centre Care Home is like a waiting room, a processing centre for people who are refugees from their old lives, a place of limbo where eternally displaced persons hover between life and death. The highlight of the day is the rattle of Lola's drug trolley. Sometimes I think it's worse than that filthy hold with its stench of vomit and shit, when we were tortured by the sound of the angry boiling sea and the thud, thud, thud of sharks' tails against the stern as they followed us, hungry for a body jumped over or thrown overboard.
Cheers up when I say we're having McDonald's, though.
In the noisy pub, a sea of faces, pink, purple, grey. The conversations zip around me. I am invisible. The warm beer leaves a slimy afterthought. I'm the only one who knows this pub sits on a ley line. I hold the secret to me and remember what the nurse said. Shattered is what she said. You are shattered. When she says it, I see fragments of glass held together for a moment and blast apart in a shower of glistening powder. Between the old life and this one is a gap, like the hole where a tooth should be. My tongue explores it, searching for meaning. And then I'm out on the street again, memorizing routes. I look for signs of myself from the street names. King Henry Walk, Miles Chase, Black Boy Lane.
We're both hungry and tired, so we decide to be kind to each other again. We're not far from the restaurant when all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, 4, maybe 5 policemen appear.
When we hear the commotion, even Lola goes to the window to see what's going on.
A young man, surrounded by police. It happens every day in London, but it's not the sort of thing you want your kid to see. 4 policemen and their prancing dog all over some poor bloke. I should walk away, but I can't. I have to keep watching. I have to bear witness.
They pluck at his shirt, his trousers, turn him around, pluck at his pockets, squeeze his cheeks to look inside of his mouth. I recall how they jabbed and prodded us, counted our teeth to determine how healthy we were before putting us up on the block.
One of my mates says when they swoop in like that, it's to intimidate the rest of us, keep us under control.
I ain't done nothing. I'm an innocent maker of maps. Ask anybody around here, they'll tell you. They've all seen me out and about taking notes of the street names. My maps show what other maps don't tell you. My map marks Mrs. Lee's kindness on the corner of Garner Road. Kids' laughter on Sumner Road, the smell of fresh cut grass on Peckham Rye.
I can't hear what they're saying through the window, but I can tell from the officer's open mouth, his furious frown, that they're ordering the man to keep a safe distance. That's when I recognize his face. He is unblemished by time, but I'd recognize his ancient fury anywhere. Lola thinks there's a problem with my memory, but I swear, I remember him as if it were yesterday.
The officers stand off as though they're confronted with an angry lion. The man makes them angry and afraid. I will him to do what they tell him to. Don't answer back. Don't make things worse for yourself. He refuses to answer their questions.
Burdner Bush Road, Hereford Retreat, Nut Street, Garner Close, Sumner Road, Daniel Gardens, Samuel Street, Finch Mews, Sumner Road, Diamond Close, Burdner Bush Road, Diamond Close, Cinnamon Close, Cinnamon Close, Cinnamon Close, Cinnamon Close, Cinnamon Close.
The officer takes out his taser, aims it at the man and shoots. Wires whip round his legs. He crumbles to the ground.
Is he dead? Is he dead, Mummy? Mummy, is he dead? This is no place for my boy. I snatch him up and leave. I don't want him to see this. We don't take the bus. I want to walk. We walk past Bush Road, Hereford Retreat, Nut Street, Finch Mews, Diamond Close. We walk until I don't know where I am anymore. Me, born and bred here. Me, who knows Peckham like the back of my hand. Lost.
300 years of enduring one's indignity after another. I have had enough. As I watch the paralysed boy's face down on the ground, I know what I have to do. I have nothing to lose. Lolo tries to stop me as I make my way to the reception area, but I am filled with a new energy. And I am and she is too heavy-footed to outrun me. In a moment, I am out in the open, face to face with the officer himself. Centuries I've waited to see you again. You and that dog of yours have crossed oceans, deserts, have chased me across space and time. Why can't you just let me be? Let the young man go. He's done nothing wrong. The officer's eyes flash with recognition, but he is at pains to pretend that he does not know who I am. He ignores me and speaks into his radio. My chest swells with an ancient anger. I snatch the taser and hold it against his head. Do you know how many times I have dreamed of this? Imagine taking your whip out of your hand and letting you have a taste of it. His colleagues stand back. This is not their fight. His forehead is slippery with sweat. He puts his hands up and backs away from me. But I am too quick for him. I aim and fire. Ka-chow! The wire shoots straight into his head and he hits the ground with his big purple tongue rolling out of his mouth.
Are we lost, Mum? Something snaps in me. For God's sake, shut up with your whining. That's right, blame me for everything. I'm sorry I brought you into an imperfect world. Sometimes I wish I'd never given birth to you at all. Well, I'm glad you saw what you did this afternoon. That's right, I'm glad. You're a big boy now. It's time you learn what's in store for you. And he's sobbing with a new, unwanted wisdom. He's crying like he'll never stop. I scoop him into my arms. I fold him into me, my love a force field around him. I hold onto him tight, tight, tight. My precious, my beautiful boy. I hug him until we both return to ourselves.
But of course, all I do is watch helplessly through the window as the officer cuffs the young man's hands behind his back, and the paramedics load him into the ambulance. Lola says that's enough excitement for one day, and gives me a cup of water to wash down the tablets.
I love the night when my boy sleeps, when he draws even breaths and his face settles into its serene beauty. Then I'm free to roam. 2 licks of a mouse and I'm talking to a faceless wonder on the other side of the world. Not tonight. Tonight I search for another excitement. I find it soon enough. What we saw recorded on a smartphone behind net curtains. Don't look the way I remembered it. The colours less sharply defined, the emotions fuzzy. Freeze frame, zoom in on my angel, his hand in mine, his mouth stretched across his teeth, his cheeks bunched up and distorted, making him look like an octogenarian. 20 years between him and the young man, yet the puzzlement and fear on their faces make them indistinguishable. When I hear movement in his room, I go to find him propped up against pillows, holding a pencil, his face creased in concentration as he scratches at a piece of paper. What are you doing? Why aren't you asleep? I've made a map, Mum. He's drawn our route in meticulous detail. At the location of the scene, he's drawn where the man fell, the placement of the police. But he's rubbed them out again. All that's left of them are faint lines and eraser fluff. The rest of our route that day intact. He gives me the map and says, "Now you'll never be lost again."
The electricity, when it shoots through me, illuminates neural pathways. I shine so bright they don't dare touch me. They let me go. I'm Frankenstein's monster with heightened senses. I smell and taste the sweetness of cinnamon cloves. The rock on the buildings glisten on diamond clothes. Blake's angels sing in the trees on bird in the bush roads. The pavement cracks and is riven in two, fills with an expanse of water on Boathouse Walk. My mind takes an aerial view. The map lights a path. I make my way home. Gardner Bush Road, Hereford Retreat, Nut Street, Ghana Close, Sumner Road, Daniel Gardens, Canaries Close, Jarrett Street, Samuel Street, Pentridge Street, Cinnamon Close, Finch Mews, Bamber Road, Moody Road, Crane Street, Diamond Street, Harrisbrook Gardens, Boathouse Walk.
First up, a request from the writer. Can we just do a quick audience reshuffle? All the girls need to be at the front, all brown, black, queer, disabled girls center, and all white, able-bodied men fall back. Not to segregate. With our little shuffle, we're just saying, we know what's going on out there, but in here, the space is safe and you're more than valued and loved. Thank you. So, I'm going to read something, apparently. My White Best Friend by Rachel de la Haye. Right, so this is Rachel doing me, if that makes sense. Hopefully it will. Okay. Hi, my name is Ruth Minkley. I'm best friends of Rachel de la Haye. Best. I'm also an actor, hence, and I'm stood here representing myself, literally, and also every other white friend of Rachel's ever. In Birmingham, where Rachel is from, her friends are mainly Black and Asian, but she doesn't see them that much nowadays. They text and FaceTime and she goes back, though not as often as she'd like, because, you know, life. So she misses them a lot. But it's okay, because we, the collective of me and Rachel's other white friends, we met nearly 13 years ago. Wow, 13 years. We've lived together, got drunk together, experimented with drugs together, fallen in love with each other, seen each other fall in love with others, helped mend heartbreak, fought. Oh my God, have we fought. We've laughed, cried, sang to Britney and Rihanna at the top of our voices in our bedrooms, in pajamas, on an exclusive diet of Blossom Hill. I can't replace her decades-long friendships from back home. I can't be Neetu or Dana, who are both fucking ace. I've met them, lots, but we have known each other for a really long time now, and we're family. The first time I met her other family, her Dana and Neetu, they came down together for a birthday party of one of the girls from our drama school. Well, they came down to see Rachel, and Rachel dictated the circumstances, so we were all going to hang out together for the first time. I was a little nervous, as anyone is, when they're about to meet the friends of your new best friend. You wonder if it's going to work, basically. If there'll be jealousy, a jostling of position. But there wasn't, really. It was easy. Me and Neetu got told off quite vehemently by Rachel for pouring and drinking Malibu and Coke in the back of Rachel's car. After we promised we wouldn't, because we understood there was literally no way to guarantee we wouldn't spill any, which we did, lots. But Neetu laughed, which allowed me to laugh, as Neetu had known Rachel for way longer, so that was the start of cementing me and Neetu. Then Dana asked me where I was from, and I said Nottingham. And for the rest of the night, I became Daphne, as in Frasier. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of easy, so nickname me and I'm yours. So yeah, that was cementing us. I was one of the girls. Did I notice they were brown and black girls? Yeah. Did I care? No. we go to the party, and no judgment, Neetu and Dana peaked and crashed hard. I was in charge of pouring in the back of the car, so I take a bit of responsibility, but I was still standing. So Rachel had to put them both to bed and then came back down, and it was back to being us, the drama school lot. And everyone rushed to tell Rachel how ace her Birmingham friends were, but equally, we were kind of okay with them being in bed and there being no more outsiders. I think I said this to Rachel as a way of flattering her, exaggerating a kind of jealousy. And she smiled and pretended to be flattered. And then we danced. The next time they were down, they bought tickets to some club night in Elephant that they had to book months in advance with named DJs and celebrity PAs and singers. Or, I mean, I don't know. I'd never even heard of it. But I wasn't going anyway because I was hideously hungover and more than happy to spend the entire evening in pajamas with zero plans. Until Neetu and Dana arrived. Then there was music and getting ready and Lambrini, Ovs. And then, yeah, I wanted to go. So I asked, and of course everyone screamed, yes, it was Daphne. Even though sourcing an extra ticket was nigh on impossible, but Dana knew someone who knew someone, so we're off to a typical club that was to be playing typical music, only the whole thing was less than typical. There was this queue outside that seemed to snake all the way around the building, and these cars parked up front blaring bass. And these loud girls in these tiny, I mean, I'm all for short shorts, but I don't know. It just wasn't typical. No one was really drinking. Instead, there were just these moody guys standing in corners, blocking pathways and toilets, and just staring and smoking. Inside. Smoking. Beneath their hoodies and attitudes. And the girls weren't much different. I didn't get the big deal. Why would you plan for this? A song that me and Rachel had said was our song suddenly boomed out, and Rach grabbed my hips and pushed me onto the dance floor, but everyone was just dancing so wild, and I couldn't dance like that. So I was really tired and hungover, and I reckoned it was just my time to crash. But Neetu grabs my arm and tries to make me dance with her, and Dana is like, Daphne, you need another shot. But I didn't. I needed to go. And then Rachel saw it too, so she dropped me home. In the car, we mainly drove in silence. I thanked her a lot and apologised for being a hassle. And when we got home, I said goodbye as she was going back out. And I said, I love you. And no, she didn't say it back. She smiled, so. Most recently, when Neetu and Dana came down, we had an impromptu house party. As in, we'd gone to the pub, but I wanted to keep drinking for a long time after the pub closed. So everyone ended up back at ours. We're in the flat, drinking, smoking, some people smoking things they shouldn't be. I'd guess I knew about 85% of the people there. I think Rachel knew the same. But we had enough guy mates with us to feel safe about the fact that a few randoms came back. So music's playing through my iPhone. Then some smart Alec thought to link up the sound to the TV for more volume. So my phone is switched off, the telly switched on, and it's late and on some 24-hour news things showing some sort of protest, which completely kills the vibe. Rachel knew it was a Black Lives Matter protest against the murder of Alton Sterling, a man who was restrained by 2 officers and then filmed from several different angles by several different members of the public, all showing the officers pinning down his arms and chest and head, and still then shooting him twice, dead. She knew because that was the reason Dana and Neetu come down that day. The 3 of them had gone to the march. I wasn't invited. Had I been, I would have loved to go, but no one told me about it, so I didn't know. Anyway, we're having this party and suddenly the news is on as opposed to Beyonce, and someone screams, where's the fucking music? And then someone else goes, what the fuck is this? And a third is like, why are they allowed to say that? Black Lives Matter? Like, is that not racist? Like, why do they matter more? And I shrugged, because again, I didn't know. And Nita and Dana looked really uncomfortable. And the silence that followed, that went on for what felt like a lifetime, was eventually filled with agreements and yes. It's a little aggressive, kind of exclusive. Someone muttered how we don't get a White History Month, which is true. And then Rachel got shouted across the room, are you kidding? And we're back to silence. And awkward giggles and stifled laughs and girls on their phones pretending to text like there's anyone's text at 1 a.m. And if there is, why are you here? And in the background on the news, name after name after name of other black men and women who've been killed this year alone. I had to switch it off. I decided everyone was too drunk and high to deal with this conversation. So I turned the telly off and the music back on. Rachel didn't have to thank me for that. She's my best friend. She then sat in a corner of the room with Nitu and Dana, chastising herself for not having the words to explain to that idiot the point of Black Lives Matter. And as I joined them, I heard Nitu say, maybe not every day us educating and not every day them not knowing. Maybe some days remembering Google is free. And Rachel nodded and, wanting to support, I reminded them, sometimes white people just don't feel it's their place to speak about race, you know? And Nitu and Dana smiled. They really are the best. Then Nitu dragged Rachel to her feet to dance because, well, we were all really too drunk to talk about this. I ended up in the garden that night for ages, talking to one of the randoms who was kind of funny and smart and looked a little like Macaulay Culkin in a Terry Richardson photo shoot, which was, sadly, exactly my type back then. And by the time I came back in, party was over. Everyone left or gone to bed. Then Rachel walks back in pajamas, cleared up the last of the rubbish. So me and Macaulay help. Then, when Rachel bends over in front of him, he makes just an awkward joke about us being the last two girls, so him having pick of the bunch or something. I don't even try to hear the end. I've already got him his coat. But now he's mortified and apologises straight away, first to me and then to Rachel. Then, laughing nervously, he declares he was obviously kidding because he liked me and Rachel wasn't even really his type. Like, he never even dated a black girl before. Not that he had a problem with dating black girls. It was just a fancying thing. Like, he wasn't really ever into girls with dark nipples. They just weren't his thing. Still holding his coat, Rachel now opened the door. He left, then I went to bed. Then, remember when I said that we fought? Rachel called after me, asking if she could expect my support, ever. I thought this was really unfair. I've had 2 examples of me being unsupportive when dealing with men who were just too stupid or awkward or drunk to even engage with. And they didn't deserve a response, you know? I then looked up and Nitu and Dana were now in the doorway, in their pajamas. Dana in a Black Lives Matter tee that Rachel looked at and then scoffed, mumbling something about that not being the only time you weren't there. And I couldn't just stop. So I continued with, I would have come on the march if you wanted my support. I would have been there, but you never asked. You never told me. I didn't even know it was happening, so how could I have? I'm not psychic. And then she scoffed again. Then Nitu passed me to get her and Dana some water, and the room was now painfully quiet. So I carried on. And I would have spoken up to that guy about the Black Lives Matter thing, but you already did. And it got awkward, and I'm not an academic. I don't know how to phrase these things. I don't know the history to this thing, so I don't know what to say. And the nipple thing, that's just blatant ignorant racism. So what can I say to that? And then I just felt horrible. And I kept thinking, why is my friend making me feel like this? And her friends were just watching and clearly thinking things. And I was like, this is stupid. I'm not the enemy. I'm not racist. I've done nothing wrong. And yet I was here being shouted at like I have. And I thought, I'd never do this to her. I'd never make anyone feel like this. Ever. Then Rachel said, sorry. Because I was right. It wasn't my problem. She said, sorry for allowing a boy's stupid comments to get to me. I know I'm better than that. I'm tougher than that. So sorry. Sorry for allowing myself to get drunk and become weak and vulnerable to those comments. Sorry for forgetting there's no time for that. There's only time for remembering to look after yourself, because no one else will. Sorry for wondering if he called me fat, if he would have been more vocal, because that's beside the point. And sorry for hoping that the murder of young lives constantly, consistently would outrage you like it did me and make you want to investigate and shout and scream and be at the center of every protest ever, like I had to be. Sorry for not always getting that you and your friends sometimes want me to yourself, because you love me and love spending time with me. And when that means me being the only minority in the room, again, shake it off. Sorry for daring to take you to a party where you were the minority. Sorry for not seeing that you wouldn't like that, be comfortable with that, at all. And for not trying to be harder, to come up with a better, safer lie in advance as to why you shouldn't join as an elephant. Sorry for being disappointed if you're not getting the big deal and not being capable of saying to you, when I dropped you home, I love you. Because I do. I really do. I just get angry and need to learn to monitor that better. Because none of this is your problem. None of it. So sorry for assuming you'd give a fuck. When you're the embodiment of every privilege I smack up against every day, with your face celebrated on every face of the world. You seek out normal shampoo and don't think to question it whilst I sit here like, man, that must be ace being normal. That's Rachel's apology. Except it wasn't, because that fight didn't happen at all. I just went to bed and Rachel let me. Because this is the fight you and your white best friend will never have. Because how do you say to someone you love, you let me down? How do you ask your white best friend to try and visibly give a damn, change your profile picture, share that post, march, knowing it will make them feel uncomfortable? How could you ever put your white best friend on stage and remind them that they're part of the problem? If you love them, if you never want anyone to feel for a moment how you feel living in the world every day. So we don't discuss it. Which means I never got to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry when you spoke your mind. I shuffled and shifted, uncomfortable with the dialogue. I'm sorry that on gutsier days, I argue points are spent defending myself first and foremost as a woman, a white woman, struggling to see the difference. I'm sorry I never thought to educate myself privately and fight, not even alongside you, but in front of you, because maybe you're tired. This is the most uncomfortable I've ever been on stage, and I don't like it one bit. But maybe that's okay. Maybe not every day enjoying our privileges and coasting through life comfortable. Maybe some days putting ourselves out there for somebody else, standing up loudly, visibly, brazenly for some one less privilege and bearing the brunt of the brazen misogyny, racism, homophobia that can occur. I am not that white woman. Yet. These words aren't my words. They are a request, an offering from my best friend who thinks if we have the ability to reshuffle and change a small space like the Bush Theatre so quickly into a safe space, we have the ability to change the world. And having had a bit of time off up until now, asking me to do my bit. Thank you for this experience.
Speak for
the unheard.
Voices.
Speak for
Unheard.
Voices. Speak for the unheard voices.
Like.
Like.
Click.
Like.
Share.
Share.
Wait.
What?
Comment.
Delete.
Jump now.
Click.
Jump now.
Delete.
Open.
Are you there?
Are you there?
I'm here.
I'm here. He says,
Sorry it's taken me so long to message you. I hope you don't hold it against me. She says,
no worries. He says,
what time is it there? Duh, 6-hour difference. Sorry, just Googled. I hope I didn't wake you. He's so sweet.
I was up. So much work to do.
I can only imagine.
How are you?
I'm well. And you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm doing all right.
I just journeyed to my old home in Houston. It was a weird moment for me. I visited my old high school in Texas, and graffitied upon the wall is a swastika and the words "kill black people" on it. It just makes me think about when I was a scrawny kid in school and just wanting to fit in. And this boy, this white boy, tied a white noose on my backpack as a joke. And I just carried it on my bag through the hallways of the school.
What?
Yeah, you gotta love Texas. I just walked down that hallway of the school with that damn noose tied to my bag, smiling to hide my anger, scared if I showed them how hurt I've been by their actions or responded in some way, they'd think that I wasn't cool or something. I don't know why I just shared that with you. That's been on my mind lately.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
I'm just trying to make sense of this world, you know? I feel like as writers, it's our duty to serve as politicians, preachers, and hell, even prophets. And I just keep thinking that I'm a playwright, yet I don't have the ability to speak for the unheard. Well, what sense does that make?
Speak for
The unheard.
voices.
Speak for
The unheard
voices. Speak for the unheard voices. Hello, darling.
Hello, darling. She called me darling. Gotta love the Brits.
Are you there?
Are you there?
What time is it there? Why does this boy never know the time difference?
It's midnight here. Oh, shit.
I'm sorry,
No.
I didn't wake you.
No, I'm up. Was thinking about you. Was thinking about what you'd said about when you visited your high school. It's not just in the US these horrors are taking place. We're dealing with a similar monster here in the UK. You recounting your memories of high school reminds me of my own childhood. I think back to being a child and my mother trying to hide us away from seeing white nationalists marching through otherwise diverse and peaceful streets, walking with chained dogs, smashing mailboxes and spreading messages of hatred. I think about my mother who cried due to frustration because she didn't know how to protect her 2 daughters from the evil of this world. Like you, I also want to speak for the unheard. Speak for
The unheard. Speak for the unheard voices.
open browser, refresh, pawn, close, 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 close. Jesus. Open new, open, read, like, open, read. What the fuck? Click, open, read. What is happening? Message.
I can't sleep.
Have you read the news lately?
No, what happened?
Share.
Click. Click. Read. Pause. Oh my God. Oh, that's horrible. The police, they.
Click, 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 click. Left him there. Left that boy laid out under the sun for all to see.
A black kid.
A black youth.
My heart bleeds.
I've been feeling rather helpless lately.
Click.
Blood on the ground.
Hours in the sun.
Yellow police tape.
Mothers screaming. Where is the justice in this world?
What can be done? I feel so much rage.
What should I do?
What can I do?
What can we do? He says, I've been feeling rather hopeless lately. This same week, the death of so many Black brothers and sisters, and then that moment of carrying that noose on my bag through the hallways of a school as a kid. They attack us both physically and mentally. I feel like I need to speak out, and I'm growing really tired of feeling like there's nowhere for my voice to be heard. I don't know. That's what I've been wrestling with lately. With so many lives being taken here, it's getting to me. I'm scared to leave the house. Who knows? Maybe I'll be next. Silence. Silence. Hello? Are you there? Hello? As soon as you get this, message me straight away. Let me know that you're okay. I still haven't heard from you. Are you all right? Are you okay? Silence. Silence. Silence.
Speak for
The unheard.
voices.
Speak for
Unheard.
voices.
Speak for the unheard voices.
Speak for the unheard voices.
I'm here.
Where the fuck have you... I've been fucking worrying about you. Delete, delete, delete. No, actually, where the fuck did you go? Delete. Was thinking about you.
Was thinking about you too. Oh, I have something to tell you.
What?
I did it. I caused a fucking fire hazard and it was beautiful.
Oh shit, what did you do?
So many people, a full house of men and women.
The community.
Electrifying.
You actually did it.
Standing ovations.
So they spoke out.
Unfiltered truths.
You actually did it.
Yes. It's time to spread the fire across the pond.
It's time to join the revolution. After all, like you always say, we are the community's prophets, politicians, and preachers.
I hope I'm not being too bold, but would you be up for maybe a video chat?
Yeah, that could be nice.
Good. I would love to get to know you better. Like. Click.
Like.
Share.
Share.
Wait.
What?
Comment.
Delete.
Up now.
Click.
Up now.
Delete.
Open. Hey.
Hey.
I can't believe I'm actually getting to see your face.
Easy now, mister. It's just Skype. How are you doing?
I'm great. Got my first hate mail last night.
What?
Nooses untied from backpack.
Dogs and hate mongers fade away.
Okay, a lot more than one, like a good dozen. It's great. Graffiti scrubbed away.
People standing together.
United.
Nooses.
Clip. Wash stickers.
Clip.
Bicycle.
Chained dogs.
Broken mailboxes.
Crooked police. Click. Click. Click.
Red, white, blue.
Red blood on the ground.
Blue sirens, white supremacy.
White bigotry, white privilege, white ignorance.
Yellow tape.
Mothers' screams.
Black bodies bled.
Their hatred. Clicks.
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 Clicks. And they have the nerve to say,
And they have the nerve to claim,
oh, you black livers, first you take our streets, now you're invading our theatre. Yeah? Then another one compared me to the Taliban. So I guess I'm a theatrical terrorist. Like, they expect theatre artists to...
sit down, be quiet, not speak.
The issues taking place in the world.
A terrorist. a terrorist, really.
So I'm going to at it. I'm feeling empowered now.
I'm feeling empowered now.
We're feeling empowered now.
More than we've ever felt before.
We're going to spread this.
Fire.
City to city.
Finding artists that have something to say.
Socially conscious artists.
Artists that want to speak for the Trayvon Martin.
Speak for the unheard voices.
Sandra Bland, speak for the unheard voices.
Eric Garner, speak for the unheard voices.
Tamir Rice, speak for the unheard voices.
Jermaine Carby, speak for the unheard voices.
Rekia Boyd, speak for the unheard voices.
Mark Duggan, speak for the unheard voices.
Michael Brown, speak for the unheard voices.
Alton Sterling, speak for the unheard voices.
Sean Rigg, speak for the unheard voices.
Sarah Reid, speak for the unheard voices.
Azal Rodney, speak for the unheard voices.
Shakur Bayo, speak for the unheard voices.
Edson DaCosta, speak for the unheard voices.
Darren Cumberbatch, speak for the unheard voices.
Rashawn Charles, speak for the unheard voices.
Freddie Gray, speak for the unheard voices.
Philandra Castile, speak for the unheard voices.
Ahmaud Arbery, speak for the unheard voices.
Brianna Taylor, speak for the unheard voices.
George Floyd, speak for the unheard voices.
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 Hello everyone. Welcome to everyone that's watching us. I'm Lynette Goddard, and I sort of curated this production of 4 plays this evening. And I'm joined by my colleague Melissa Blanco, and also by some of the student performers and directors who will be with us through this discussion. First of all, I just want to say thank you, and really big congratulations to you all for the work that you did with those plays. Really, the students, you had 2 days of working with those plays, and you've come up with really imaginative ways to produce them. Really thoughtful. I know the plays intimately, but it was still really nice to see the work that you did with them. So really, thank you so much for that work. We really wanted to put on this season of this night of 4 plays in response to the killing of George Floyd, and you did a really good job with them. So thank you. Also thanks to Rebecca McCutcheon, who kind of helped me with the decisions about the plays. To Rosa Higgs, who I think did the editing, and to the drama technical team, so Chris and Harry in particular, who've done all of the background work to make sure that this online event is supported. So we've just seen the 4 plays, and the 4 plays are from a season of plays called Black Lives, Black Words, and that's a kind of playwriting initiative that was started by Reginald Edmund in Chicago in 2015, and it's since been to London and to Canada, and I believe to other states in the US as well. And when it came to London, it was at the Bush Theatre, and it was done in collaboration with his partner, Samelia Hodge Dalloway. And hi, Tasia. And you saw that last play was kind of them talking about the idea of what they might want to do in terms of internationalizing the Black Lives, Black Words play initiative. So this initiative is a play. Every evening is made up of short plays. So Black playwrights are invited to contribute a 10-minute play, 10 to 15 minutes, that responds to concerns from the Black Lives Matter movement, and particularly to the question, do Black Lives matter today? And you can see that each of those 4 plays gave their response in a slightly different way to this question. And the night that I saw the play, which was in 2017, lots of plays were programmed together as rehearsed readings. So it's designed to be done as you've done them, as rehearsed readings. And then it was kind of interspersed with moments of performance poetry and spoken word performances as well. So the whole kind of evening was a little bit like being in a kind of protest performance, if you like. And the plays that we curated this evening were all shown in the 3rd season of Black Lives, Black Words, which was in 2017. And we chose them because several of these plays address issues of theatre's activism and the role that white people can play as allies to the Black Lives Matter cause, the discussions that Black and white people may or may not, as in the case of the monologue play, may or may not have around these issues as well. So we felt that they kind of really keyed in to some of the key aspects of that discussion that we're seeing now on social media platforms and the news and so on. And so we're kind of taking our prompt for this discussion from the last play. I should say that I added about 10 names to the roll call at the end of that last play in order to memorialize some of the most recent names of people who have died during or soon after being in custody with the police. Apart from the last 3, so I did about 10, they were all British names. And I really wanted to add them because some of the conversation that's circulating around at the moment is this idea that in Britain, things are different here. Things are different in the UK. You know, you don't have the guns. In the US, they've got guns. The police have got guns. The community have got guns. But you don't have the guns in Britain. The problems are different there. But I wanted to kind of add those names to really say it's not that different. We don't have guns, but we still have our fair share of deaths in custody cases. And I could have added many more, right? I just added some of the most recent ones. But I was like, these are meant to be short plays. So you don't want to make it a long play by just continuing with the roll call. So we're taking our lead from that fourth play in this discussion, and we're going to talk about the idea of theatre and our academic work, I suppose, and the ways in which it can make an activist contribution to the Black Lives Matter debate. And Melissa and I have pre-arranged a few things that we want to talk about in this area. And then we will take some comments from the students. So it'd be really good to know what it was like for you working with those plays. And then people that are watching, you can send live comments to the YouTube channel, and they will be sent to me, and we'll try to answer some of those questions as well. So do send them in. So Melissa, I think,
hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me properly? Yeah. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Wonderful performances. I'm so excited to have watched it and to have gone into the emotional journey with you. I really felt like all of you were really embodying those words and really taking into consideration your own experiences now and how you can bring the context that we're all living in into your performance. So thank you so much for that. And Lynette, thank you for asking me to speak with you, because you know we
chat, but not live.
Yeah. So so Lynette, thank you for sharing your most recent journal article. So in that article that I read that you published in the Journal of Contemporary Drama, you offer the phrase "a political aesthetic of crisis" as a framing device for these Black Lives, Black Words plays. So I'm wondering if you can say a little bit more about the significance of what a political aesthetic in this context does, right?
So, well, most of you know me, some of you have been taught by me, and many people know that I like theatre that does something. So I like to think that when I go to the theatre, it will do something in the world. It won't just be, you go to watch a play and it's about a particular issue and you go home, you applaud, you leave, and that's the end of it. I want theatre to make me active, or make me be more active. And when I went to see Black Lives, Black Words in 2017, I can honestly say that it was one of the most, I don't even know what word I want, but one of the most powerful, important nights at theatre that I've had ever. And I think part of that can be attributed to the short play format of the work. When I was thinking about the article, I was thinking, we're seeing a lot of short plays, aren't we? We're seeing short plays in response to Brexit. Kwame Kwei-Armah curated some short plays to respond to the Windrush scandal. And so I was thinking, what is it about the short play? I wonder what the short play as a form can offer to us as a form that can respond in quick form, in immediate form, to current events as they're happening. And so I was kind of thinking about this as a kind of an aesthetic, I suppose, that enables playwrights to make, as I say, an immediate and provocative response to current issues. Each of the plays that you've seen, you see that the playwrights have to get quite quickly to the main points. The monologue, obviously you wonder, where's that monologue going? What's this? When I went to see the play, I was like, why am I at this Black Lives Matter event and I'm standing watching this white woman talking? What's going on? But quite quickly, you get to the point of the play and the heart of the play and the crux of the play. So I'm kind of interested in that, I suppose, and as an aesthetic. And then what I did with the work was I was thinking about the ways in which these short plays might connect to plays that come out of the Black arts movement. So that was a kind of a movement in the 1960s where art was about rage, it was about power, it was about protest. It wasn't art for art's sake, so really right up my street. It was like, this is theatre that's really going to do something in the world. And I tried to then in the article connect the short play format, its powerfulness, its anger, its emotions that are really quite present. It's a form where, the long play format, you've got an hour 20 minutes, 2 hours for the story to unfold. But in this one, it all unfolds really quickly. And I found that a really powerful form, particularly for plays that are dealing with these kinds of issues. So I guess that's what I was thinking about when I'm saying I want to think about the short play as something that we can use to respond to crisis, to respond to these crises. I was also looking at work that was around crisis. I saw that lots of Black work wasn't included in those debates, particularly, and so I was interested then in kind of inserting some of the Black work that I knew about. And then the last point I suppose I would say is about the aesthetic. So each of those plays that we've just seen had something in their own aesthetic. So you've got the monologue form where she's narrating the letter that's been written for her to narrate. You've got the plays where they're talking to each other on the internet. There's kind of, for you students, you might talk about this in a moment, there's the kind of, how do we solve the overlapping nature of the speech and stuff like that. So there's that aesthetic within the plays, but then there's also the impact of each of those plays coming one after the other throughout the night. And I think it's that's the kind of important thing in terms of that aesthetic. So is there similar stuff in your field, in sort of dance practice in terms of aesthetics?
Yeah, so here I'm going to turn to Brenda Dixon Gottschall's important book, right? Digging the Africanist Presence in American Performance, Dance and Other Contexts. I don't know if many of you know, but my specialty is dance practices, corporeality, Blackness in Latin America specifically, but Black diaspora performance practices. So in Dixon Gottschall's book, she thinks about these characteristics or these sensibilities in performance, Black performance specifically, and she highlights this notion of call and response, which we can see in two of the plays we saw today, Principles of Cartography, and specifically the last one, right, where both of the writers are going back and forth and repeating, kind of jumping on one another's words and repeating and coming back and forth. And then there's a more sort of evocative, poetic use of language in Principles of Cartography and Speak for Unheard Voices. So this kind of call and response and rhythmic or polyrhythmic play with language. Dixon Gottschall would say that that's part of this polyrhythm in dance, or polycentrism, where you're moving many different parts of your body at different times. So obviously, this idea of coolness is also considered a Black sensibility or a Black aesthetic. And here we can think about in #Matter, how we know that Kim is angry, but she's kind of holding back in plain sight, so to speak, right? She's kind of like not letting, she's in her emotion and her feeling, but she's also not letting that be read necessarily in her facial expression, even though there's anger there, called for anger, right, because of what's going on. And I know we didn't see this play, but I know Mojisola Adebayo's play, The Interrogation of Sandra Bland, she specifically turns to call and response as well, particularly using the chorus of women's voices to sort of imagine the power and presence of Sandra Bland, answering these questions from the police officer at that moment where she was the few moments before her death. So I guess what I want to highlight here is how Black cultural producers, whether they're artists or dancers or choreographers or playwrights, writers, they draw from Black sensibilities and Black ways of knowing and experiencing the world, and then how these sensibilities then become a type of Black aesthetic that's not necessarily fossilized, right? It's not about saying Black is this means Black, but it's more of a way to think about writing and dancing and producing art and representing the world through Black embodied experience. And here I turn to this phrase or this quote that I always find useful when I teach about Black aesthetics, and it's from Thomas DeFrance and Alina Gonzalez's book, Black Performance Theory, and they speak about Black sensibilities being these stylized ways of being in relation to each other and our environments, where knowingly or unknowingly, right, these sensibilities become sources of strength, resistance, or pleasure. And I think it's important for us to note in these plays that these Black writers are actually drawing from these sensibilities, right, to tell us about how they see the world through their own embodied experience of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that, yeah.
That really goes with the sort of the idea of the Black aesthetics as well, and the idea of kind of Black aesthetics as something that centers Black experience. So one of the kind of mottos of that was, you know, this is Black plays written by us, written for us, written about us, and produced near us. And one of the things with the kind of Black lives, Black words, kind of the way that it moves into different cities in the US, and the fact that kind of when it came to London, it was plays that were very much looking at the kind of London experience. So it kind of localizes the experience of the people that are writing it. So I think that kind of speaks to this. What you were talking about really speaks to this notion of a.
Yeah, because I think the local is important when we think about Blackness, right? Because, you know, we have this big term, the Black diaspora, but the Black diaspora doesn't necessarily mean it's something coherent. Okay, perhaps it's coherent through skin color or the experience of anti-Blackness, let's be real. But it has its specificities, its geographical specificities, and its local, global. Yeah, so again, it's like, yeah, that's why I think the concept of knowingly or unknowingly in the use of the Black sensibilities and right, I think it's important to give the agency to the Black cultural producer, and then he or she can then speak from their experience, and you know, who are we to invalidate that, right? And we can talk about that further when we talk about sort of the concept of the human and lives mattering and whose lives matter, etc.
Well, we're kind of moving into this idea, aren't we, of Black people speaking, and very much that kind of the last piece that we just saw there, speaking for the unheard voices, which I think really captures the idea of kind of these plays as you know, captures the activist potential of these plays. And I was really struck at the third Black Lives, Black Words production that I saw, how several of the plays seem to raise questions about how we talk about race with white people. And two of the plays that we saw, so Matter, hashtag Matter, and My White Best Friend, they both kind of raise this question, right? What does it mean to be an ally of Black people? And from seemingly small things, right? The character in My White Best Friend, I guess I know that play much better, but the character kind of going to the party and kind of saying, well, I thought it was going to be a typical party, but it wasn't quite typical. Well, it wasn't quite typical to you, although she doesn't sort of say that, does she? So from seemingly small things like, am I going to have my friends back in the face of racial microaggressions? Am I going to call out racism when I see it? That's been a big thing that's being spoken about right now. To this thing of, you know, Black Lives Matter, do we say Black Lives Matter? And what do we say when we're faced with this counter response? So that was in both of those two plays, you know, that all lives matter. What do we say? Apart from exasperate, what do we say? I was watching a Sky News debate yesterday. It was about race and revolution or something. And one of the questions they raised was about whether racism can ever change without white people speaking out. So there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, about what makes an effective ally. There's been some talk, I follow Black Lives Matter on lots of different sites on Facebook, and there's been lots of stuff around kind of outrage. What is the place for outrage? What can we do beyond the outrage? There's been critiques of people performing outrage, stuff like that. There's been critiques of social media politics, kind of like, yes, you sit on your sofa comfortably and you type your hashtags, but what are you really doing? What are you really going to do to make sure that things change? So I just wanted to ask you, Melissa, what do you think about this? What do you think about this kind of question of the role of allies and allyships? Because I think that has been one of the big debates that has come to kind of public attention now in terms of Black Lives Matter, I suppose.
Yes. Well, I think hashtag Matter and my white best friend, specifically addressed this because they specifically put the white character in that existential position of having to choose whether they want to be an ally or they just want to stick with the status quo, basically, stay in white privilege and say nothing, right? So there's current discussions also about, don't be an ally, be an accomplice, but being an ally is still important. So then what are the differences, right? Particularly for white people who want to get involved in social justice, racial justice work. What is it? What's the difference there? And an ally, if we want to think about it, is more like on a micro political level. It's the work that a white person does to stand up for a person of color in a particular white situation where in my white best friend, that was a situation there. She was called to be an ally and she was like, well, I don't know, I didn't. And the same thing, all Kim wanted was for Cole to say, hashtag Black Lives Matter. It's that small moment where you're being asked to compadecer, that's the word in Spanish, to be like compassionate to that in that moment. It doesn't mean that, that the Black person is asking you, go out and like strike and kill, burn down the system. That's accomplice work, right? Accomplice work is the white person that actually wants to stand up to systemic racism and works with Black social justice leaders, with Black and brown social justice leaders, and is not doing it for self-adoration or feeling good about themselves. You're doing it because you know that white supremacy is wrong. You know that white supremacy is evil. You know that it's a dehumanizing system that's based on the hierarchy of one particular race of people, right? So, and obviously, you don't need to listen to me. I feel like Robin DiAngelo takes good care of that in her book, White Fragility. She's, as a white person, she speaks specifically to white people about what they can do. But yeah, not everybody can be out there protesting, right? But for a variety of reasons. But I know I've been watching a lot of videos on Instagram and Twitter, when I have the stomach for it, because it's really hard constantly paying attention to all this stuff. But a lot of the Black women that I've been inspired by and watching, they also, we white people, we need for you to put your bodies on the line. It's come to this, put your bodies on the line. So I remember when I saw this image of, I don't know what city, but it was white people literally blocking the protesters, protecting the protesters from the police. That's what we mean. That's what we mean about, that's accomplice work, because that means you are well aware that police brutality is about to happen, that they're going to target the Black and brown people who are, and that if you stand there, they won't touch you because you're white. So I don't know.
When I was young, we would when I was a teenager, we were taught that when you see a Black person being arrested, you should stop and visibly make it known that you're watching the arrest. I mean, of course, that's developed now with people taking out their telephones and filming and uploading and stuff like that. But we were told, so as young Black person, I was told you stop, you witness, you make sure you don't get involved, but you witness and you make sure that your witnessing is seen, and by witnessing, visibly witnessing, that might make a difference to the ways in which that arrest kind of maps out.
Correct, because people speak about, oh, well, we need to fix the system is broken. No, the system isn't broken. The system works perfectly well if you're white.
For some, yeah.
The system isn't broken. The system just isn't the system that's equitable.
Yeah. And so I suppose that accomplice work is really important, because I've also been struck. So again, this is just watching my social media feed over the past few weeks, but there's been a few things that have kind of put clips of Black people being arrested against clips of, say, white people being arrested, and particularly the really famous one, I can't remember the name, but the Charleston shooter who the police went and bought a Burger King for or something, and was arrested, someone who'd shot and killed, was it 9 people, who was then arrested in a as though
his body wasn't thrown on the floor like he was
exactly, and stood over and stamped over and crushed him. So talking of that kind of just leads us on to the last point before we bring the students in, which is that we were kind of thinking about, when we were talking before, we were kind of thinking about the play Principles of Cartography, and the ways in which that kind of mistreatment of the Black body. So in that play, you've got the kind of older, the ancient character who's like, I've seen this before, this is, you know, I've been chasing you, police officer, for 400 years. Right, so she's the kind of ancient griot, the person, the kind of woman from the kind of from the ancient character, and she was, and we were kind of thinking about the ways in which there's been sort of debate, hasn't there, around the George Floyd killing, that it was kind of a public lynching, so something that kind of links back historically, but links back also to the ways in which Black bodies were treated during slavery. I don't know if any of you saw Debbie Tucker Green's play Ear for Eye. Did some of you see it? Because I know I taught it to some of you in 2018, and that play kind of really makes the point about the ways in which that the legacies of slavery, so the slave codes that legalized the dehumanization of Black bodies, then become translated into contemporary, you know, that man believing that thinking that he can have the power to sit on someone's neck, their neck, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It's like, what could have given you that thought? And I think Principles of Cartography really picks up on this idea that what we're living now is a legacy from times past, and that comes out in other work as well. There'd be kind of books that link Emmett Till to Trayvon Martin, for example, and stuff like that. What do you think, Melissa? Plays linking the past to the present. Is it,
Well,
yeah.
You know, it's funny. I always say I'm not a historian, but then I always look to history to do all my work. So maybe I am a historian. I'm just a historian in denial. But that said, I always like to go back to, especially when I'm teaching about race with my students, I take it back to Sylvia Wynter. You know, she's Jamaican polymath, basically. You know, she's a writer, playwright, dancer, philosopher. I mean, this woman is, and she's like 90 something years old, and she's still writing and still vibrant mind. So if you've never encountered any of Sylvia Wynter's work, she needs to be on the top of your list. So she has this fabulous article. It's 80 pages long, so obviously it's not bedtime reading, because you have to really sink your mind and your heart into it and revisit it and revisit it and revisit it. But it's that kind of important reading. And she specifically, it's called Unsettling the Coloniality of Being, Power, Truth, Freedom Towards the Human After Man, Its Overrepresentation. And she specifically traces how the ecclesiastical authorities in Spain moved from seeing the indigenous populations, so the Aztecs, the Arawaks, how they literally created the discourse by reading the Bible and reading Aristotle, and how they moved from this concept of the irrational savage to the sub-rational Negro, and how they developed these theoretical arguments to justify the enslavement of Black people. And then it's this concept, right? Who gets to be considered man? Who gets to be considered human, right? They wrote it down. And then, you know, the way the written word works, at least in European culture, is that it becomes the law, right? It becomes something that people refer back to, and they're like, no, but it says it here. But look, it says that they're not rational, so we have the right to enslave them. We have the right to treat them like chattel. We have the right, right? So, and I think that it was that moment, and this is what Sylvia Wynter really digs deep into in this article. It was that moment in the creation of power, in the creation of truth, in the creation of being and human, right? That we're still trying to work with and undo today, right? It's and you know, I think about the abolitionist movements, right? Where in Britain they had those coins that says, I am a man, am I not a man, and I'm not your brother, right? What is it that it said? Am I not a man and your brother? Or I think about the US civil rights posters where there specifically just says, I am a man, right? So it's this insistence on Black humanity that's basically calling out the inhumanity, right, of white supremacy, who's deemed it necessary to dehumanize in order to stay in power. So this is what I feel like we're still not getting to the heart of the problem, is that who has the authority to deem who is human? right? Because if we look at history and we look at the white supremacist system, I can tell you right now who's inhuman, right?
Yeah, that really takes me back to Debbie Tucker Green's play as well, actually, where in one of the slave codes, it's kind of like if the slave escapes the first time, you cut off his ear. If he escapes the second time, you cut off his hamstring. If he escapes the third time, at which point I'm thinking, well, what third time? But the kind of third time is the kind of, punishment by death. So the kind of dehumanization.
Dehumanization, because they were considered property.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think of this, again, because my work is on Blackness in Latin America, I think of this Puerto Rican writer, Rosario Ferencz, this wonderful story about there's a moment where these two little Puerto Rican girls who are white Creole and they fall in love with their maid's baby, right? And she's a beautiful, and the way the author describes, like, no, she was this beautiful, round, dark-skinned baby girl. And the two little white girls are in love with this baby. But then after playing with her, they get bored. And then they go and they look for paint and they paint her white and they almost kill her, right? So, I mean, I'm laughing at the heart, but, and that right there tells you, right, the thinking of white supremacy, that you can just use Black and brown people as objects for your own benefit, right? And this is what's been trying to be, this is it. The thinking that man could put his knee on George Floyd's neck for, like you said, 9 minutes because why not, right? Anyway.
And with the nonchalant look on his face.
Correct.
Anyway, let's bring our students in, because they've been waiting very, very patiently. And I said that I would invite them to, to just give a little bit of a reflection about what it's been like to be part of this process and to be performing these plays, and maybe also talk a little bit about some of the decision making that you had for the Zoom, producing these plays on Zoom. I just wonder if any of you would like to say a few words.
I don't mind going.
Yeah, go, of course. Ashlee.
Yeah, hi. Honestly, I found this a very therapeutic experience being part of the plays during this time, because you see so much happening on social media, so many people's different opinions. You go to a march, you feel so alive, so happy, so grateful, and then you go back home and you see what people in your area are saying about the march that you just attended, and it can be so painful. But just to have a space where everyone is actually on the same page with this, it has been so cathartic.
So almost empowering as well, I think, to be speaking those words and making those debates live. I think that's what was really clear to me in what you were doing, was just how present and live you were with those debates. Does anyone else have any feedback? Directors?
Kind of like to link back with what Ashlee was saying. It was really nice to because most of my directing was stemming from my own experience at the moment.
What do you mean?
About discussion that could have, with childhood friends, or even because I'm mixed, so my dad's family is white, so there's a bit of issues with that at the moment. So there was a lot of actually those two plays, #Matter and My White Best Friend, allows me to actually really go into this type of this connection in the conversation on something that is what Kim's reflect, the fact that she only wants him to acknowledge that Black lives do matter. That's as little as this. That's not, we don't need to have a massive discourse from you. We just want you to acknowledge this. So yeah, I think it was really helpful in a way of dealing with all the emotions that's happening at the moment. So
It's probably quite good that you did both of those two plays together, because they do both kind of share.
You do complete each other. Yeah, that would be nice.
I'd like to ask Jojo and Ethan if you'd like to say anything about those pieces. I'll say Jojo's piece, My White Best Friend. I think I've said this already, but I'll slightly repeat it, that I wondered what its place was in this night of Black Lives Matters events, a whole monologue, and quite a long one, because we cut it a little bit, didn't we? Devoted to the voice of this white woman through the voice of her Black best friend. Just wonder, do you want to say a couple of words? Or
it was really interesting. When I first read it, I was the same. I was reading it and I thought, how can this be placed among an evening of pieces written by Black playwrights? It didn't quite make sense to me at first. But then once you reach the point, and there's these little moments throughout the text where you're like, oh, where she's, like you said, about going to the club night where it wasn't as typical, and about the party, and as Rachel brings up later in the text, that she's the only, she's the minority in that party, and there's just these little moments that makes you think, oh yeah. And that's something that I think is quite common from my perspective as a white woman, these little things that you probably don't think about, but then when you look at them, you're like, oh gosh, yeah, they're just part of this bigger picture, which you can contribute to, even accidentally. And I think that's part of our role, is noticing even these tiny moments that we need to make note of and change our ways. And that's part of our work to becoming an ally and accomplice. So it was definitely a really interesting piece. It really, it just showed me a lot of bits that a lot of things that I hadn't thought about within the wider discussion of race at a moment.
Yeah, great. It really, really did capture, I think, all of them. Even the moment in the other play, so I think it's Ethan's play, where Ashlee's character is saying, and he touched and then you paused. It was so powerful, that moment. And then it's like, my hair. You kind of go, your hair, but it's such a thing, how I get it a lot with my locks. How long have you had your hair? Is it your own hair? Do you wash your hair? Just all kind of fascination with the hair, do you know what I mean? And so it's really, really a powerful moment that you kind of captured there. And it's one of those, asking about hair is one of those microaggressions that you're right, Jojo, people should be stepping into. The lights came on. Ethan, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, just sort of echoing, I think, what Jojo said there. But it was interesting that at the end of this particular piece in #Matter, obviously we see Cole, that character, kind of realize that, okay, like he, now he sees kind of the reason behind the hashtag, and that he puts that post on social media, and that's where we end. But for me, anyway, I thought it was interesting that is really the beginning of his kind of journey, his sort of awakening, I guess, for want of a better word. And that actually, I like to think that the character then goes on to start to listen more and speak less, and really kind of start to learn and educate himself on more of the issues around it. Because obviously I think a lot of the kind of issues with this allyship or that kind of thing at the minute comes from a lot of people posting that hashtag, or posting that kind of black square for the Blackout Tuesday, or even going to a protest or anything, and thinking that they've done their bit, or donating or whatever, and thinking that the job's done for them, when really there's got to be that commitment to continue to learn and continue to listen and continue to kind of build upon that. So I thought it was an interesting place to end there, that kind of moment. And for a lot of viewers, it's like, he got there, but really, it's just the beginning.
that he just kind of woke up.
Yeah, great. Today someone sent me that the Bush Theatre have uploaded a series of short plays. Some of them are like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute. You can watch them all in about 25 minutes. I think it's called The Protest. And in one of them, can't remember the name of it at the moment, the character says exactly that. It's like, well, what now? You know, now that you've done that, now that you've heard us, now that you've acknowledged that Black Lives Matter, what now? What's going to happen in 6 months' time, in 2 years' time, in 5 years? You know, what's going to happen? What now? How are you going to keep this up? Are you going to keep this up? And how are you going to keep this up? So, have you got your hand up there, Tasia?
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, in response to what you just said, and pretty much what everyone else has said as well. I think it comes down to the way to keep the momentum going and to keep a change is that there's such a profound difference can be made in such small changes that people make. So it's about dismantling those pretensions and the ignorance, and just not necessarily acknowledging something just because it's not occurring to you, or just because it's not it's not hitting home with you. So it's about taking that time, and it starts from those very small changes, and then it's a seed that's planted, and it affects the rest of your life, basically. So if you so in the sense that just by understanding like that people are being dehumanized, and that it's obviously not acceptable, but just by understanding that, then people can implement in the rest of their life. When they see different things that are happening that are going wrong, they can stand up and say something. They can change the way they act themselves. They can think, okay, if I say something like this to someone, that's not acceptable, or that's not, they're not going to appreciate that. And I think by planting that small seed in people's minds with these types of plays and through this type of work, it means that people will come to understand it on a more personal level, and in a way that means that it's not just, oh, you're not allowed to say this to a Black person, this one specific thing, or you're not allowed to do this. It's understanding the underlying issues of it, and why anything that comes from that pretension will then have a wider effect on every single other thing that you do. So I think small changes in mentality can and will lead to that further change down the road, because changes in mentality will be the people that, of our generation anyway, will be the people that are the next politicians, and the next teachers, and the next just people on the road that are seeing things that are happening and would have the ability to stand up and say something. So if we start that now, then that's the change that can happen over the years. So I think even if in the short term a huge difference isn't made, even if it isn't made, in the long term it should be fulfilled, basically.
And also change our representation, or make sure that our representation questions stuff, and then also that the representation changes because of what we've been questioning in representations like this. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So Dom, I think you had your hand up a little while back when I was asking the directors to speak, and then we moved on. So I just wonder whether you want to come in.
Yes, thank you. About speaking from the Unheard Voices, as a director, I remember reading it a few times, and I remember speaking to Tasia and saying, this play was interesting for me from an artistic and analytic perspective, because a lot of the plays that you read to do with Blackness frame Blackness as plight and suffering. And when I read this, I first thought about a modern love story and Black joy. And I, as a director, I wanted to focus that lens rather on the suffering.
Yes.
Now focus it on the Black joy, because even when you think about the protests now, a lot of it is about the communal joy. Even though there was just seeing, I think even when you can't be involved in a protest, there's such a tangible joy that can be felt from afar, that we have the power to do this. And I remember reading this play specifically and thinking, there is such a strength to be faced with so much hatred and still love in the face of that.
And it's that as well, because it's about the two flirting, coming together, uniting both politically and also kind of personally as well. And I think you guys captured that really, really well in the way that you did it. So
yeah, there's this article that I recently read that was literally, the title is "Racism is the Problem, My Blackness is Not." Right?
Yeah.
And that's the title of the article. Yeah. So I was like, that's it right there. Because exactly like you said, Tom, you know, I was talking about Black sensibilities, and within those, there's space for not just pain, but joy, pleasure, laughter, right? Just humanity, Black humanity, right? And all that that encompasses, right? And Black people are clear, like, you know, our Blackness is not the problem. It's racism, right? Because I was watching this fabulous, her name is Sonia Renee Taylor, so you guys should just follow her on Instagram. She's wonderful. And at one point she was talking to the camera, she's like, my Blackness is not a problem. I revel in its effervescence. And I just love that phrase. So it's this, yeah. So I just want to leave there, in the effervescence of Blackness.
So we kind of got to where we were going to end the discussion anyway. When we were planning it, we were kind of thinking that one of the things that we would talk about, just as a kind of closing point, is about that kind of where next, you know, because we're seeing statements of solidarity from the theatre industry, from university institutions, etc., etc. I'm of an age where, you know, I've seen stuff before. I've seen the Macpherson report, and I thought the Macpherson report, things will change. I saw the start of Black Lives Matter in 2013. I was like, yeah, people are protesting, things will change. And now we're 7 years after that, and we're here again with George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks and Breonna Taylor, and we're kind of here again. So there's a part of me that's like, I'm really hoping that this moment things really will change, that we will start to see kind of significant and lasting change. It's kind of what Tasia was saying a few moments ago, in terms of the issues in the world, but also in terms of the kind of institutional change that we need, really, in the university sector and other sectors as well. And I was going to ask a question about what we can hope for, but I think you guys have already contributed your answers to that in a way. You're through the work that you've done. Really, again, really thank you so much for the work that you did on those plays in such a short space of time, and through the contributions that you've made to this discussion this evening. It does give me hope for your generation, and then the generations beyond you. So thank you very much, and keep the fight.
Thank you.
And that's it. That's us. Thank you, everyone that's been watching. Thanks, Melissa and everyone.
Thank you, Lynette. Thank you to the
Good
students.
night. We had one question, but our time was out, so we didn't get to it. But I hope everyone's enjoyed and been provoked by the plays and the discussion. Because as you know, plays need to do something in the world. They need to go away and change. And I think this kind of activist theatre really encourages us to do something different next time. So, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.